Alright. Hello everyone from AGDQ. I'm here today to show my submission for Ratchet & Clank Into the Nexus All Gold Bolts. So first, a little thing about the category. As implied by the name, the goal is to collect all 12 gold bolts in the game as fast as possible. So without further ado, let's get into it. So starting off, right away during the run, there is an out of bounds that's done right away to be able to maneuver the ship that we start in a lot more freely, which is just used by abusing some inverted objects in the game, some inverted collision. So the main purpose of Nebulox is to be a tutorial level, teaching you a lot about a lot of the mechanics of the game, the action-oriented sections, the platforming, and whatnot. But we're really just learning platforming, and that's it. So throughout this level, there are 4 major triggers. The first one is coming up here, and it's activating a dialogue from another woman named Vendra, who you will be hearing a lot throughout the game as one of the main villains. Next up, we're making our way to the second trigger, which is a bolt crank. We will be making our way there through a lot of precise platforming, through a lot of invisible and hard to see platforms. In the middle of there were actually a couple of holes that I was making sure to avoid in the invisible floor. Coming up right here is an abuse of an extended hyperstrike, which will be used in occasion to get up to some higher areas that we're not supposed to reach in the run, as well as some slope intercepts, which we use the helipack on certain slopes to be able to gain a bit of height.
Activating backup generator.
And here we are at the bolt crank, which is used to activate the backup generators from apparently when the ship got broken down, which we actually never saw. So there's actually a little bit of an oversight used with the gravity boots in this game, where usually it doesn't allow you to just go off of gravity boots sections. But if you end up getting out of a gravity boot section and come back into one real quick, you're able to just walk on the gravity sections just fine. Also, going out of bounds here to skip a autosave trigger, because hitting that autosave trigger actually loses quite a bit of time. And now we're doing something called difficulty warping, in which you change the difficulty of the game and it brings you back to an autosave spot. Or brings you back to the most recent autosave spot. So that's used quite a bit to get back to previous places when you've gone far enough off the beaten path. Next up, we're making our way to the next checkpoint in the level, which is up at the front of the ship, to meet Neftin and Vendra, who are talking to our boys Kronk and Zephyr very nicely. So going up through here, there's a lot more spaceship platforming and whatnot. Sometimes not being able to see what you're standing on, sometimes not being able to see where you're going at all. Coming up here is one of the other major focuses of the game, which is the action. And through it, there is XP routing that we do in the run for both health and weapons. And there's also Raritanium, but I'll get into that in a little while. Right there, I was trying to make sure to not waste any ammo on the enemies. Also make sure to kill as many enemies as possible. Now, right here is movement that you don't actually get to see too much in the run, which is movement with the gravity boots. And a lot of it is just aiming at a platform as quick as you can, holding the left trigger, and then spamming the jump button. Sometimes even pressing jump before the left trigger. Either way, most of what's trying to be done here is getting through here as fast as possible, not only for the sake of speed, but to make sure you're not taking damage from these enemies. Also, that bit of debris there is not solid, so you can just pass right through it. And that is the end of Nebulox. Just have to sit and wait for the ship to, as he says, come about. And then he'll take us to the last trigger, which is sitting way out in a random spot in space that it takes you to. This game has a very nice mechanic in which you can actually move during black screens, actually, which will also be used quite a bit in runs. It'll be I actually used it a little bit ago in the run, but the first major use is right there, just to get a long jump out of the way as soon as possible. Then right here, a lot of people like to call this branch, or just like branch skip. And that skips grabbing a major item in the game that's used for those rift circles that are around everywhere. Usually use them as kind of like a tractor beam to be able to attract you around to places to use for puzzles. Right there was an infobot that we need to grab for Planet Crag, which is the major arena fighting planet in this game. So you'll be seeing that place an okay amount of the time. And the way we got over there was because the developers didn't notice that they didn't make the wall too high, so you're able to just land on top of the archway and just go straight over. So some more weapon routing here, making sure to be able to kill these enemies with your use of ammo. And another slope intercept here to get up on top of this doorway. Right here is another difficulty warp to bring us back to the main hub area. From here, Raritanium starts to become grabbed in the actual run. The Raritanium is used in this game for weapon upgrades, which you'll not see me do for a little while still. But it's a very pivotal part of the run because it can determine a lot of your damage output in the late game. Right here is a very simple skip, actually. It's just a high jump and then let's grab over to this island. And that skips a major section where you learn how to do these 2D rift sections with Clank. Without doing it, you can't do any of the puzzles unless you're forced into one. But that's not really a problem because you can skip all of them. And it skips like a major amount of this planet. Right now we're going to be entering a boss. Oh no, big scary man, don't do anything to me. It's okay though, because we're not even going to care about him. All we're here for is the gold bolt and then we're leaving. And the gold bolt is way over in a spot that you're supposed to be using hover boots, which you get way later in the run. But you can just abuse some of the geometry in the game and get over here way earlier. Another difficulty warp back there. And here's another use of moving during cutscenes. You can tell when to move during a cutscene when the autosave icon in the bottom right starts to like change color and stuff. So it's a pretty good gauge to be able to tell when you can start doing things. Right here in this corner, there's actually a couple of ledges that you can stand on. You can use to get up to this area right here. This area is important because this is actually the cave at the end of Planet Yarrick. But the cutscene isn't loaded yet because we haven't loaded the area. Right now what we're going to be doing is standing in a very particular spot and double jumping to load in that area. And then we're able to go back to the end of the cave and load the cutscene. We just skip through that. We do one more difficulty warp to skip a cutscene, and that's all of Planet Yarrick. Coming up in Crag, as I said before, Crag is like a very action-heavy part of the run since it's arena fights. So a lot of it's properly knowing where all of the enemies come out, as well as making sure your ammo consumption is not too generous. And this is where a major thing comes in, that's part of the run, which is ammo RNG. So the original Ratchet and Clank games, when you would, or like pretty much every other Ratchet and Clank game, when you're below half ammo on a certain weapon, you're more likely to get that kind of ammo than any other type of ammo in the game. Whereas in Into the Nexus, it doesn't matter, it is still completely random. So this game can completely screw you over without getting bomb ammo. Also, I suppose I forgot to mention back in Nebulux that I grabbed Bomb Glove. And that's because this weapon is very overpowered. Like, it's a bit of a trek to go over and grab it, because it uses up like 30 seconds or so. But in the end, it's more than worth it to grab, especially after all of the upgrades. Yeah, most of the first couple fights here are just making sure that I use bombs as much as possible, because I want to upgrade it to level 2 by the end of the third challenge here, which is called Pest Control. So during like the marathon, if this got in, this would probably be like one of the best times to do donations. It would be like it's good to have up in the background and stuff, but it's like, I mean, it's just killing enemies over and over. Suppose I could talk a little bit about the incredible plot of this video game. At the start, we had a criminal known as Vendra Prague inside of our Nebulux 7 prison ship, or prison transport ship. We were taking her to a maximum security prison when she hired Thugs for Less to go break her out of the ship. In the process of doing so, they ended up killing our best friends from the earlier games, Kronk and Zephyr. We actually only popped up for one game, really. And from here, this is essentially a revenge story. You go, well, grab them, taking him into custody like you're supposed to, but you know, with a little bit more anger and emotion in it because they killed your friends. So these arena fights are actually very consistent with where enemies spawn, so you are actually able to root them out very well. Know right when you're supposed to use a bomb and where. As I said before, this is the pest control fight, so I want level 2 bombs at this point. Sometime during here, and there they are. Which opens up the Raritanium upgrades that I want to use, because you unlock more slots for Raritanium upgrades as you level up a weapon. Also, by the end of here, I want to have 12 Raritanium. Right now I have 9, but this fight gives you 3 Raritanium as a reward. Or actually 2. Need 11, not 12. My bad. So, from here we're actually going to be exiting out and applying those upgrades, as well as buying our wall removal utility device, or Nightmare Box for short. That'll be used quite a bit throughout the run. Right here, we have some very specific Raritanium upgrades that we're supposed to get during the run to help maximize our DPS. And Nightmare Box, which will be used in this boss fight quite a bit. So we'll be trading in a lot between using the Nightmare Box to stun him for a bit, and using bombs to take care of the rest.
He's looking for someone who enjoys old films, going to the gym, and setting fire to pretty much everything.
So from here, it's just boss fight. Then we do a difficulty warp doing a cutscene, and then we'll be exiting Shiloh. The reason we need to do Crag in the first place as well, aside like going to Crag twice instead of once, because we do have to return. The second time is for the gold bolts, but the first time is actually for a jetpack device, which is needed in Silox. We wouldn't actually be able to finish Silox without it. So now we're heading to one of the longest planets of the run. We'll be starting off right away with a difficulty warp to skip a cutscene, and then immediately going out of bounds right off of a light. This level in itself has 3 triggers that are used to complete the level. The first one is a relay station, which we're going to be making our way to, which has an action sequence where we fight a bunch of enemies and another one of the same blaze bots that we just fought. After that, there is the fight against Neftin himself, and then a smaller fight right near the end that leads to the cutscene. And those open up the next planet. If you don't do all of them, the next planet, called Thram, will not actually unlock. Like, say you decide to skip Relay Station, you're not able to get Thram just because you didn't do Relay Station. Right here, we're going to be doing a little load off of like this gravity ramp area, just to load in the next section, so I'm able to keep going. And this is the first clip used by Nightmare Box. So that's... You shoot the Nightmare Box kind of near the wall, and you stand idle to the side of it, and it pushes you out of bounds. Here is the other use of a Nightmare Box, and it's that it has a slight platform on top of the key that you can stand on, so you're able to get to places that you're not supposed to. So I can reach that checkpoint up at the relay station, and now I have to death abuse here so that the game catches up and knows where I am, realizing that I'm now at the relay station. So coming up here, there was actually something that happened to me that was...
I'll give you some room to work.
It's not really known how it's caused, but it just happens sometimes. And it's an instant kill from the laser in the far back that's spinning around. It's just sometimes while you're doing this fight sequence, it will just destroy you for no apparent reason. Right there, actually. The funny thing is that actually one hit kills the boss as well. It shoots through the boss at you. So that death actually screwed up some of my XP routing and ammo routing, but that's not too big of a deal.
Sounds like a plan. I'll give you some room to work.
This time it doesn't happen, luckily. But it's kind of just a small irritant stirring around. It loses a little bit of time, but it's not super detrimental unless you're very top level. Now the boss is here, we get to do our patented Into the Nexus fighting strategies, which are throw Nightmare Box, throw more bombs until the enemy is dead. Voila, the enemy is dead.
Coming with that hack. I am almost done.
Remember to vote Grimblebrick. Grimblebrick. Dude, I'm so good at this. Grimblebrick. Game actually has the audacity to throw two bosses at you at once. Well, one after the other. There's some showing off of the amazing ammo RNG in this game. You just want bombs and you'll never get them.
I am now inside the system.
Access granted.
So part of the reason we needed to do relay station there was, as I said, the checkpoint from before to be able to properly finish this level, but also so we can activate these fueling pads, or more of just the first one. All the other ones work, but as I said, you can't skip the checkpoints. They need that to be able to get up to this next gold bolt here, and we'll be doing another Nightmare Box clip to go out of bounds and grab another one. The last one that we're grabbing here, we will then be doing a difficulty warp during like the grab animation. But the noteworthy thing about this area is that usually it's this dark sewer area that we're supposed to be entering by putting in all of like these spark plugs and stuff, and when you don't have it loaded in, it is very, very not dark. The game tries to keep you away from doing stuff like this by removing your ammo as fast as possible, but you can actually just move just enough inbounds again quickly to be able to still have your ammo. Or ammo. Have fuel. Sorry, my mind is everywhere right now. Right here, we're doing 2 difficulty warps. Well, the first one's a difficulty warp. The last one's just a difficulty switch to bring us back to easy difficulty for the Neftin boss fight. Right here is a little trick that isn't actually used anywhere else in the run. Off of a high jump, you can use the thrusters and gain a bunch of extra height. You can use to get up here, and then proceed to clip through 2 separate walls to get to under the Neftin fight. From here, there is a bit of invisible geometry that we need to land on, and then the area loads in. Now we get to do our second bit of Raritanium upgrading. So, a funny thing about that load is that it only works the first time that you load in, or like, it only works when you first go through this area on a file. You can't do it, you can't practice it by going back into the game or anything, or like coming back later. You have to do it that first time, otherwise like not even the invisible floors will load in, or it loads really strangely. So luckily it works when you first go there, so that you're able to get quite a bit of the level. In fact, the 2 like major skips that are done, for skipping the sewers and skipping to the relay station, and those like easily knock out like 15-20 minutes of gameplay.
This sector belongs to us now.
So now is Neftin boss fight with the patented Into the Nexus fighting strategy. If you're lucky enough, you can freak out the Bugs for Less guys while on the train, so that they'll end up staying on the train and then just fall in the electricity and die. But it's also equally as fast to just shoot them as they jump off. A little faster even, but it's, I mean, it's nothing like getting scooped on a train. So, in doing this section here, Neftin finally ends up using something called a Dimensionator, which is a large helmet device that allows you to do pretty much whatever you want. It's just like this all-purpose device used for anything. And from it, it brings out this giant nether beast that Neftin and Vendor have been using or that have been talking to for a while. And his entire plan has just been to get out of the Netherverse and just using them as tools. So he's finally made it out of the Netherverse, and Vendra gets sucked into the Netherverse. And now the main goal is to help Neftin get Vendra out of the Netherverse, as well as defeat the giant monster that is now going across the galaxy. Well, right now just in Silax, but he changes. Right here there's a creative use of geometry, or like a creative use of like platforming on geometry to get up to this bolt. You can just hop on these pipes. Usually you would have to use like the tractor beam gadget to be able to get up here, but now we don't even need to use it. Right here's the last trigger for the planet. To be able to open up Thram. Just killing that guy, getting this cutscene. Now we are on our way to Thram. Thram is this game's version of like an item collection, like how Ratchet and Clank 2 had like the chi crystals and the moonstones. The third one had the crystals from all of like the slimes and so forth. This one are getting horn, or the purpose of this one is getting horns from Gargathons. You will get to see what those are shortly. There's a difficulty warp, and we'll be aiming around behind ourselves right at the start of the planet to try to get a horn early off of a skeleton. Hey! Wow. Wow, my voice did something weird there. So, I was aiming for there, but I ended up missing the bomb. Or, the bombs ended up missing the horn. So, that's not too big of a deal, because we do one more difficulty warp that brings you up there anyway, again. So you can just turn around and try it again later.
I have a feeling those hover boots belong to you in the first place.
The major thing here is making sure that you have enough bomb ammo to be able to easily break all of the skeletons. Sadly, that did not work out the way I wanted, because I did not get much ammo from enemies. So I had to go over and break a couple manually, which loses a bit of time, but nothing too major. Before the difficulty warp that we're doing, we do a slope intercept off of this vine here. Be able to rise up it and get to this gold bolt. Then you'll see me warp back to the start of the level and actually grab that horn that I meant to grab before. This is all to get a pair of hover boots, which were supposedly stolen from you in the first place. Oh. I apparently already broke it at one point, and when I loaded back in the game, I had it, which I've never seen before. That's interesting. Now we have hover boots, and now we can do a nice thing off of this ramp right by the smuggler, which is an extended hyper strike off of a ramp jump, which is used to skip quite a bit of the level. Then from there we can do some precise platforming off of geometry to be able to get to the final cutscene of the level, is used to unlock the final planet, which is AGDQ. So a weird thing that can actually happen here, if you end up pausing and exiting out of that cutscene fast enough, you actually deload all of the sounds in the game. Don't mind that, my dog hit my HDMI splitter at that point. So from there, it was just some more platforming on geometry to get up high enough to grab that bolt. And that's all of Thram. So now it's time to come back to Crag and grab the 2 gold bolts that we need there. So what we need to do in Crag is do up to the first gold challenge, which means that we're doing all of the silver tournament and the first gold. And then after that is the last use of Raritanium upgrade, or upgrading, which we use on the Nightmare box this time to get more ammo for it. Because we need more than 4 ammo for AGDQ. So from here you get to see the use of some of the items, some of the special items that we've gotten in the game. These jetpacks, or the Chrome Knight jetpack. As well as the hover boots in a bit. Aside from that, it's a bunch more arena fighting stuff, so it'd probably be another great time to do donations. during a run.
No instrument of death will be
As I've said before, every spawn in these fights is every enemy comes out of the same spot every time, so you can be ready for where they're going to come out. Usually it's pretty simple because you're able to pretty optimally kill all of the enemies just going in a circle, but every once in a while it doesn't really work that way.
You might remember Ratchet from just a few hours ago, when you helped Neptune Adventurer Prog murder his friend.
Next up is actually probably my least favorite point of ammo RNG in the run. Because what you need to do is kill 12 thugs for less guys throughout this area, and there's no ammo drops. So you need to hope that one of the enemies drops some ammo for you, otherwise you're just going to be using the pistol. And the pistol, it doesn't have terrible damage, but it's kind of useless by this point. During this run I was lucky enough to get ammo though. Actually, a lot of ammo. I got very lucky in this instance. I was actually able to finish that challenge pretty fast. This challenge here is kill all of the enemies within 2.5 minutes. So there's going to be a lot of enemies over the course of 5 waves. Now, luckily, it is actually quite easy to do this. Mostly because we have these very overpowered bombs and the ability to aim them straight at the ground so the bombs go everywhere. Or the bomblets, if you will. Overall, not like a super interesting challenge. It's just a lot of killing enemies as soon as possible. You know, same old story. After this, if I'm remembered correctly, though, it is the Gargathon fight. I don't know, I tend to phase out during this section quite a bit. It should be the Gargathon fight. Or the Rabid Gargathon fight, which is another very annoying moment where you might not get the ammo you want, and it loses a decent amount of time.
Looks like we have a battle, folks. Attention, employees. Doug's Fortress has just been nominated for the best small mercenary.
I got, like, fairly average luck during this fight, so that's alright. It was kind of a shame that I had to pull out the pistol there, though. I at least got it before the platforms dropped to the lava, which I've had points that I've had bad enough RNG that happened. But you can also get RNG as lucky as killing him off of the ammo that you have and one ammo box. Alright, here's the last challenge that we need to do here, which is a fairly simple hover boot course. If only the hover boots were actually, like, decent to control. There's a lot of, like, weird stuff with hover boots in this game, like, you can manage to get high jumps with them, And when you're wanting to use high jumps to get to somewhere higher than usual, and the hover boots get pulled out and you're next to a wall, they eat all of the height that you're using, which is very much not what you ever want. And then it's very hard to control if the hover boots are actually going to come out in those instances. Now coming up right here, we have the last use of upgrading. Now I have a lot of raritanium. I could use it for a lot of things right now, but I refrain from doing so because at this point it doesn't really matter. The DPS that I'm already pumping out is more than sufficient, and the getting extra bombs, which is what you would be doing, it doesn't really change much with the final fight, because most of what we went into was core charge damage.
Come on. We gotta get into that museum.
Another instance of if you can skip a cutscene fast enough. If you do so, you actually skip a cutscene with Tao right there. Or if you like skip like the entry cutscenes fast enough, you don't have to talk to Tao. Usually she'll, greet you at this planet and tell you to go into the museum like I'm doing. Right here, this can be a very scary part of a run because you need to make sure that you're not making mistakes with the Nightmare Box ammo, because you only have 6 ammo and you have approximately 4 that you need to do. So getting the upgrade is actually not necessary in the first place, but it is like more than encouraged. Right here, landing up on this and then long jumping over to this invisible floor to actually load in the floor in the first place. That allows you to skip quite a bit of the museum. And then there's a difficulty warp here to actually bring back the tour bot so that we can open some of these doors coming up, as well as activate the elevator at the end of the museum section. So a cool little thing about the hover boots though is that I never actually mentioned it in Thram, but I used it there as well. You can delay a jump for like a solid second after using the hover boots. So if you use the hover boots and you just go straight off of a platform, you have ample time to be able to get a jump off, which allows you to make some very unintended jumps. You can actually use it to skip to the other side of the museum, but you actually need to do stuff on the inside of the museum to be able to actually load up a taxi that you need to use. So it's very useless. Plus, if you go over to the other side, this room isn't even loaded. You'll see like this kind of black shade over the inside of the building, and then you enter, and there's just a bottomless pit. Coming up here, I'm actually switching it to Legendary difficulty, since I already had it on Hero. And this is because we only have one more difficulty swap left. So switching to Cadet right now would not be a smart idea. Right there, I actually overlapped a cutscene by moving during the black screen. I just long jumped forward and overlapped 2 of the cutscenes together. One showing off nether boots and another showing off a nether spawner. Also, best gold bolt in the game back there. You just land on the railing and then high jump and you grab it through the floor. Another good use of geometry right here. Get to land on this. Also, cool nether. Never had him land up there before. But you can just use the trees. The last thing you're supposed to do in the game is you're supposed to be fighting nether You're supposed to be fighting these nether brutes to be able to open up the path to the final boss, but we don't really feel like using all of that time. So first you're going to see a failed attempt of me doing this, which was a shame. I just tried to do this in a way that I've never tried before, thinking that it might be faster, and I just screwed it up. I get it the second time though. The special thing about this pipe is that I was aiming for a fairly specific spot, and if you just hold the glide button and stay neutral on the analog stick, you will just phase through the ceiling, allowing you to skip the entire nether brute fight stuff. So yeah, like that, you just skip through. Coming up here, there's another thing that is like pretty much never used in the run, and it's a special feature with the hover boots and ramps. It's kind of like a storage of momentum through the hover boots, and you're able to use it to just skip past the cutscene before the final boss and just go straight to the boss. From here, it's a whole lot of killing a giant, scary-looking monster. I gotta admit, Somiak did a very good job in making this monster look unsettling. A lot of what I'm trying to go for here is aim at like the top of the enemy to try to get as many child grenades to hit as possible, just to get a little bit more damage output out. But as I said before, the child grenades actually don't do that much extra damage, but they are like useful. Most of the damage that I'm doing is off of the core charge of the shot. Yeah, this is another pivotal spot when it comes to not necessarily ammo consumption, because you're not going to be worrying about ammo consumption in a boss fight, you're just unloading. But the thing that matters more about this fight is making sure that you get good RNG. Coming up here are the 2D sections that I mentioned a long time ago, and I'll be doing 2 of these. Right here, you can actually use moving objects to push you out of bounds in these 2D sections. It can be used to skip like all of the puzzles. Another thing that I got to show off right away in these sections, but I didn't get to this time, was something that was found very recently, where if you punch off of a ledge and then just keep spamming the punch button, you will fall down with a lot of momentum. You'll fall down way faster than if you're just normally falling. Here's an actual good example of this. So you like go completely off screen.
Here, try this.
And that's the first 2D section. Next up, we have more high-octane action between Ratchet and the giant nether beast. Skill point for finishing within a certain amount of time. I'm a speedrunner, I hope I get it.
Oh, you know, just fighting an interdimensional monster the size of a spaceport.
So I don't really know why they did this in this game. Every other boss in this game is like very squishy when it comes to damage. Meanwhile, this one is extremely tanky. He is a massive bullet sponge.
This guy's tearing apart the city. What's your
It
status?
actually makes hard mode
One more
playthroughs
nether to free her from a stasis field.
painful,
I am
to
on
be
my
quite
way.
honest.
Hang on, Miss Prague.
Coming up here, I was trying to use some more of the momentum stuff, but I came shortly to realize that it's not useful there, like, at all. Here's a kind of finicky clip right here. Luckily, it's right at the end of the run. So, you push yourself out of bounds using that moving platform. And you just fly your way down to grab this nether beast down here. And the ending is, like, actually right where you're at, like, right below you.
Try this one.
Thanks. Got it.
So that's the last of the Clank sections.
Let's just
Now all we have left
never
is
want to see this place
the rest of the
again.
final boss.
Ratchet, I have Vendra. We will be there soon.
You're doing great, Ratchet. Aim, fire, jump, fire again. These are key combat moves for any hero.
They had a pretty cool mechanic on the last half of this boss, which is using the gravity boost mechanics by flipping you upside down. It can be a little disorienting. As long as you're not falling off the platform, though, it's not too big of a deal. Which I will admit that I have done before, and it is extremely painful when it happens. Aside from this, I hope you guys enjoyed this submission. I wasn't super happy with this submission, but I thought about showing like a very realistic run for this. I intend to improve way a bit by the time that the marathon ends up coming to be. I'll be working on this run a lot over like the next month or two, probably. So, anyway, I hope you guys end up enjoying this, and have a good one.